This is the future of Africa. In this program, we focus on Horn of Africa's political, economic, and socio-cultural aspects. Let's share our vision, hopes, and professional critics. All views are stemmed. Stay with us. Dr. Taberi, welcome to this program.
Thank you.
Great. Dr. Taberi is an adjunct professor and human rights advocate. We'll be discussing a number of issues, Dr. Taberi. And just to start with, given your experience, your exposure, what have you, how do you evaluate what's happening in countries like Ethiopia and in Oromia in particular?
Actually, before 2018, we had great hope because the whole people were protesting against the government. And so, since it involves all people, almost all walk of life, we thought that there would be democracy, there would be human right, and again, there would be development, but at the end, all that hope was dashed. It is sad. From transition to democracy, from transition to the regime of human rights and the regime of development, we end up as Ethiopia is almost like now you can say it's a failed state.
What did happen to those promises and hopes? Why failure in your evaluation?
To understand actually why it didn't work, you have to look back to Ethiopian history itself. In Ethiopian history, you clearly see there is two narratives. One narrative is the status or the unionist narrative. The unionist narrative believe that actually, that belief is not only Ethiopian, but some European in the past. The so-called modernists believe that if you have the same language, the same culture, the same identity, then you could be unified and you could have, good cohesion between ethnic groups. But the other believe that that is not true. That is not really good, because when you try to impose your identity on others, the others resist. And the others say, what about mine? Why disrespect my culture, my identity? And I have my own. And so, in this sense, in Ethiopian history, you can clearly see a struggle between these two narratives. And then in the last 14 years, the so-called nation and nationality narrative got an upper hand. And during that time, the nation and nationality actually got the nation, got their own state. They formed their own state. And so the nationality also has got right. They could be minority, but majority rule, minority right. For example, in southern part of Ethiopia, you could see nationalities who have whose right is respected, and the bigger nation, especially the Oromo nation, has got its own state. So the question is not about how we restructure our country. It's not about, almost about 90% of the people believe that federalism, especially ethnic-based federalism, is really good for this country, because that accommodates differences. That can help people to live together in harmony. And so the only problem is, even if we have this kind of a structure, a good federal structure, the problem is there is no democracy. There is no respect for human rights. And the development itself is not enough. The pace was not enough. So first, we should change the pace of the development. And again, we should work on, democracy. And so instead of one-party system, we should have multi-party system. And so we should respect human rights. And that's the question. But After Abiy came to power, he regressed, he turned back to before 1960s. In 1960s, the students, especially the intelligentsia or the so-called elites, just pointed out that the problem of this country is this so-called the unionist narrative, and this doesn't work. Ethiopia is a prison of nation and nationalities, and then they try to address it, and Derg also try to address it, but TPLF or EPDRF actually answered that question, but Abiy said what EPDRF answered is really wrong, and he returned back to the unionist narrative, and because of that there are a lot of uproaring from everywhere, from Tigray, from Oromia, from all nation and nationalities, and because of that there was conflict. You see, we had, the Derg versus EPDRF or TPLF war was because of this, because of unionist and federalist narrative. And for 17 years, we have been fighting. And finally, this force, the so-called federalist force, won that battle. And at the same time, after 30 years, we return back and again start war. Because you clearly see why there is a conflict in Ethiopia. The base of this conflict is these two. And so, because of that.
As you described before 1974, clearly that was the imperial time.
Yes.
And then there came in, and then the TPLF actually, and there was a new constitution that time, this time it's getting old actually, 1995, right?
Yeah.
That was about nations and nationalities,
yes.
about what you are talking in terms of bringing in new initiatives, policies, and so on, such as creating regional states, using all language and autonomy and so on. Actually, it was not practically implemented, as you said, for about 27 years.
The problem is, it is not about the structure. The problem is on democracy. One-party system. The problem is we were under one-party system. Otherwise, you see, for example, if you take United States, they have hierarchy, right? You start from county, then the state, then the federal government. Or city, the state, federal government. The federal government has 3 branches: legislative, judiciary, and presidential. In Ethiopia, we do have the same. Yes. You start from Kabale, then district, then zone, and then the state, and the federal government. You have these 3 branches. There is no difference in terms of structure.
Actually, in terms of implementation, it was
implementation.
Now look at, let me take you to the other side. Now, as a result, there was a movement, actually. The youth movement from 2014 to 2018.
Even though the youth led it,
it is. Sure.
That was a question actually incorporated
nations
the mass.
And nationalities and...
the mass. The mass, generally the mass.
The Oromo people. That's right.
Yeah.
And, there were hopes and promises during that time, as you described.
Yeah.
Was it hijacked? What happened then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who did hijack it?
Look, this is what happened. The demand was democracy. The demand was, demand for human rights respect and development. But there was, since, this is mass movement, this mass movement, actually, I could say, it was not led by the political party. The political party were actually supporting it, but they were not leading it. The youth were leading it. And so, again, because of that, this is actually what happened always when there is civil movement. When there is civil movement, what happened is the civil movement is mass and massive. Okay? It involves mass and it is massive. And so, it actually share or it actually divide the ruling party. In the ruling party, always when there is civil movement, at the end, some group, some sect, from the ruling party come to the civil movement or return to the people, and then align themselves with the people. And those who are in power now, they say that we are pro-people, we are with the people, we are the people, they say it. And so the people believe them, because there is no political power or political party leading that. And so what happened is, at the end, they said, we are the people, we are among the people, and your question is our question, your demand is our demand, and so we are going to the transitional government. Now the old day, the so-called who was saying no to your demand is gone. That means TPLF. Yeah. And so we are now the new force, and so we are in a transition, and we will transit this country to the next level. And then everybody believe them.
And at the end of the day, they hand over to the unitary bloc.
Yes. So the youth believe them, and then they said, okay, do it. Okay, if you can answer our question, that's okay. If you can answer, if you meet our demand, that's okay. And then they give the power, and then they start to support. But what is really sad is, after few months, then it start to return back to the old narratives. Mm-hmm. Okay. That is even, Ethiopia was under one party system, but now Ethiopia is under one person. We had one party system, authoritative regime, but now dictator. We are under dictator. And so Abiy is the maker and the shaker of Ethiopian politics now. Just only Abiy. Except Abiy, if Abiy say no, it is no. If Abiy say yes, it is yes. So we return back to dictator.
Let's move a little bit to the other question. I'm always questioning where we are now. Sometimes I personally get confused. Where do you think the country is heading as a country, and Oromia as a region? Do you have any clue about that?
Yes, actually it is a difficult question, but we are on the verge of make or break, okay?
Yeah, I'm referring to what's happening in that nation in terms of war, in terms of corruption, in terms of inflation, in terms of peace and so on, in terms of, if you like, hate speech and the pressure,
Yes. That is what I want to say about, actually. Look, as I told you, we are on the verge of make or break. Okay? Yep. Any country, any people, any country, any state may experience or maybe get through this taruma, what we are experiencing now, but at the end, we can make or we can break. This is how we do. We have two scenarios. Okay, one scenario. Here now, we tried federalism. To some extent, it worked, and we pointed out why it didn't work, because it was not well implemented, and we have pointed out that. And if we work on that, if we work on how we really meet the need of those people, okay, the need of nation and nationality, and if we really answer those demands, then we can make Ethiopia great, okay? So all you do is implementation means democracy. Implementation means multi-party system. And if you have multi-party system, and if you have democracy, and if people really manage, really control their affair, control their destiny, and if they have a choice, a power to choose, to elect, and again to move anybody from office at any time, then you at least you could minimize corruption. One, okay? You can minimize corruption, because if he is corrupt, then he will be out. People have power, and the people can do that. If the elected official doesn't meet or serve the people, then always you have a power to remove him. And then if you can do that, you always move out. Or maybe you always, fire all those corrupted individuals, corrupted officials from the office. And the other is, if you have democracy, if you have multi-party system, and if you really accommodate differences, then you minimize conflict. Because, because here is, there is idea. First, war or conflict, especially this physical violence, doesn't actually started out of the blue. First, it has to be fermented. And first, there is idea clash. And so, when there is different kind of ideas, and if you give them space, then people actually start to look at it. And if those ideas...
I see that you're talking conditionally. If, look at this, one of the failure of their government is the lack of response to the question of people, question of nations and nationalities. Do you think that the government is going to respond to those questions, particularly the questions raised during 2014,
Now what we
2018?
see is not, the government is not on the right position, on the right trend. The way it is going, the way it is responding is not really promising. What we want to have is a multi-party system, as I told you. The government is not there. The government, that's why I said we are on make or break. If we can make, what we have to do is, first, we have to sit down, discuss, and then implement federalism, and then start to exercise democracy. And so you give freedom to everybody, and you give freedom to opinion, you give freedom to freedom of expression. And then if one good idea become prominent, then others support it, and then again your idea should you should work hard to propose or propagate your idea, and then it could be accepted.
Yeah, but basically the question of people is about democracy, about good governance, and so on.
Yes.
It's like, in one way or the other way, referring to the Constitution, back to the Constitution.
Yeah.
There are also people against the Constitution. How do you see this paradox?
Again here, yes, there is the idea, or maybe there are some people who really who oppose or who generally discredit the Constitution. That is not a good idea. That's not a good idea. It's because the problem is sometimes what I call the invisible majority. We as Oromo, we as South nation and nationalities, Somalis, Afar, or Tigray, we are invisible for them. They can't see us. They can't even they don't think or regard that we have opinion about this Constitution. All they listen to, and all they want to follow, and all they think that always they are right, and always this Constitution is bad, and then we should have another Constitution, and that is really bad, and that doesn't help us. Otherwise, Constitution you can actually is always,
a dynamic one, yeah.
Yeah, there is amendment.
Yeah.
You can amend the Constitution. You can improve the Constitution. We are human beings, and the Constitution is not something like sacred books. and you can always improve. You can always, if they need a right, then you should meet the demand, and then you should accommodate. You can put that that demand in the constitution, and there is, always there could
In fact,
be.
the constitution, the amendment, their question is somewhat covered. The uncovered part of it is back to the olden time.
So that doesn't help.
That doesn't help the nation.
That only create chaoses.
Sure.
Chaoses. Because, if you don't know what to do, how to do. For example, again, let me go back to the United States Constitution. Before, when the 13 colonies become a state, United States, they had Article of Declaration and then Article of Confederation. Okay, so that Article of Confederation, United States was governed by that Article of Confederation for 10 years, but it didn't answer. It didn't answer the basic question: what kind of government should we have? What our government should do? How we really address those problems, for example, only addressed by the federal government, for example, like military, like foreign relationship, and about currency, So finally, they discussed and come up with this great idea of constitution. And again, even with constitution, look how much it is beautiful. All states have their own senators, 2 senators, and all people have their own representatives. So, for example, as in Minnesota, we have 10 representatives. That's a good idea. That's actually, you do have in Ethiopia this, but it didn't implement. We even didn't appreciate it. Look, in the House of Representatives, everybody have his own representative. And in the House of Federation, it assumed that nation and nationality have representative there. For example, a single nation or nationality, or maybe so-called people, one maybe ethnic group in southern part of Ethiopia, which as a language maybe spoken by 300 people. At least that ethnic group has representatives in the House of Federation. And that representative could say, X language is suppressed, or X ethnic group is really oppressed. So you can say that. There is such beauty in it. We didn't appreciate it. We didn't implement it. Why we didn't implement it? 1, there is ignorance. 2, there is also the so-called one-party system. And so you control everything under the party, and then there is no appreciation.
Let's move a little bit to the other aspect of our discussion again, on the current situation, what's happening in Ethiopia. If you take the war in the northern part, now it's in due process of solving that through peace talk, and there are some progresses in that regard. But if you take Oromia, there is a continuous aggressive war, and recently the president of Oromia gave clue to a peace talk, and there was also a reaction from the other side, positive reaction actually, by putting some prerequisites. And the parliament also described, the other one as terrorist, and
TPLF,
the TPLF,
terrorist list.
Given this, what's going on in real terms?
That act amounts like denial, at the same time opportunity. Denial. First, let's start from denial. It denies the right of Oromo people. So it is a kind of closing the door for openness.
Why do you close the door? For instance, you can't have 50% or 40% of peace. Peace should be a complete one. Oromia is the largest, as you know, the largest regional state. Unless peace is in Oromia, you can't have peace in that nation.
To understand that, first you should look at the background of this peace process itself. The background of this, how they really come together, how this peace process has started. For a long time, since 2022, I think. Actually, it was 2021 when TPLF reached around Debrabrat. Then these big veto powers, China and the United States, actively engaged or actively involved in that conflict. The United States maybe said, now it is enough and you should go to negotiation. And China also wanted to save the Ethiopian region, which was embattled at that time. And so, because of this, they said Abiy at least need symbolical victory. So, since Abiy won symbolical victory, then they maybe United States say to TPLF, go back, and then there will be peace process or peace, and maybe from international community there is rejection that if TPLF control Finfinne, then it would be disaster. Okay, the country will be really totally the regime or the state in general fail, and that actually resulted in maybe as one of the top American diplomats say, if the regime really failed, what happened in Syria is just like a child. You got it. So because of that, at least it is important to save the regime, but use this carrot and the stick diplomacy. And so because of that, they actually put pressure on TPLF, and then TPLF moved to Tigray. And when the TPLF moved to Tigray, the Ethiopian regime thought that it got, it's not true, but symbolical victory. And after that, they start discussion. And this discussion actually led to what is finally, it is called forced blockade. It created blockade. And after it created blockade, there was continuous negotiation to break this blockade. And finally, it didn't work, and then the second, in August, the war started again. When the war started again, in the beginning, the TPLF had super hand, but after 1.5 months, they lost the battle, especially the Battle of Shire. After the Battle of Shire, TPLF almost is like a surrender. Okay, then there was actually all of them have their own point, their own.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyhow, here Abiy got a victory, and as victorious, it said in those peace there is peace accord, peace negotiation, and so he is negotiating from a victorious point of view. Okay, that's what happened in Tigray. And so generally, if you look at that peace process, TPLF is now like a junior, like somebody. Okay, we did this, and do you accept? We did this, and is that okay? Like, for example, last time, this is a good example. For example, they elected Debretsion, and then they said to Abiy, we selected Debretsion to be a leader of transitional government. And then Abiy said no. And then they go back to Makale, and then elected Getachew, and then Abiy said, okay, this means that now we are subordinate, we are submitted, and we only go according to Abiy will. But when you come to Oromia, there is no such situation. In Oromia, we know that. Maybe if others know or not, we don't care. But the reality, what is happening on the ground is Wobo is superior now. It has super hand. And Wobo is on the ghetto of Finfinne, actually. Just only 30 minutes or 30 kilometers or 35 kilometers away from Finfinne. And so, in such situation, Abiy didn't get even symbolical victory. Okay? Since Abiy didn't get symbolical victory, it is unlikely that he goes to negotiation with Oromo or with Wobo. What he is demanding, what Shimadlis said, and what they want to do is, now what they want to do is, they just want to send some elders, Oromo elders, Abagadas, and then they think that they will talk to some Wobo leaders, and then after they talk to Ola leaders, Ola say, okay, there was a problem, sorry, we don't do this, and we don't actually revolt against the government, and then that is what they want. And I can't see, that's why actually they didn't delist Ola, what they call Shani, from terrorist list.
Well, the issue of, you see, who did win, the government of Ethiopia or TPLF is controversial for them, because it depends on where you stand and how you make the analysis itself. That's my reflection. And when you talk about the conflict between OLA and the government of Ethiopia, you said the OLA is nearby Addis. Can you describe some of these locations? Do you have any information on that?
Actually, even if you look at TPLF, that is what you could clearly see. What you could see, what happened in Shire. The Shire battle is really very important, and that changed actually the whole narrative, the whole peace process. There was peace process before that, but after the Shire battle, TPLF broken, then the peace process go through. But it's not only that. It's also the international community pressure in South Africa.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. My claim, my reflection is, who did win? For me, both sides were losers.
Yeah.
Because
look.
All those distractions.
Yeah. Look. Maybe somebody who is just near to the diplomat told me, in South Africa, all parties have their own point, their own agenda, and then they tried to talk, but there was no peace breakthrough. And finally, the American top diplomat, Biden appointed actually as a diplomat to Horn of Africa, and so he said to them, if you don't agree, if you really don't come to terms, then we will take out our hand out of this situation, of this conflict, and then it's up to you.
That's the pressure from the international community.
Look, here, what you should understand is not only military victory, but in military, Abiy was winning. In diplomacy,
do not forget that the war is between the federal government, which is which is a bigger one.
Actually,
three
states.
Yes.
3 states.
Yes.
It involved 3 states.
Let's
and
move
even
to,
more
let's,
than
let's
that.
Move to the
even
Oromia.
more than that.
Let's
actually,
move to the Oromia
it was
context,
international conflict. Eritrea was a part of
Yes.
it. United Arab Emirates was a last part of it. Somalia was a part of it. The federal government, the regional government, and even China itself was a part of it. And probably Russia also was a part of it. And so, because of that, it was international conflict. You could say it is international conflict.
That's true.
Second, in terms of diplomacy and especially support from international community, TPLF had super hand, and so the countries, I mean Ethiopia's economy was failing, and Abiy has no choice. The TPLF has no choice. In military, they are defeated, but in diplomacy, they are winning, and Abiy is defeated in terms of diplomacy, but winning in military, so that compensate and probably created.
That's why I said who wins is a question of
created good condition for.
Let's a bit move to Oromia.
But when you come to Oromia, as I told you, Wobo is just around the vicinity of Finfinne. That means, for example, if you look at where they are, where what is taking place now, it's just 30 or 40 kilometers away from Finfinne. For example, Meta district, in, where you have Mugar. You know what happened in Mugar. And again, Mulo district. Sululta, by the way. Sululta is just 50 kilometers from Addis, and next to Sululta, or a part of Sululta, is Mulo. And I think Wobo is very active there. And at the same time, Dere Liban in Bushoftu, Wobo is active there. Bushoftu is just 40 kilometers from Addis, and where Ethiopia has actually it is air force. And so, Wobo is really active in central part of Oromia, Ethiopia, and it is near to Addis. That doesn't mean that Wobo is just about to get into Finfinne. Okay, it takes actually, and since still,
that's fine.
Wobo is guerrilla.
That shows turbulences. That shows, I mean, turmoil.
Yes,
in that area and all throughout Oromia. And my question is, why the government tend to refuse talking to OLA? Because peace is the only option for the government to solve actual problem.
Actually, if you look at it now, what I said is the background to the peace, and I mean the context, the wide context for peace to happen. Peace happen actually. Generally, peace happen if there is two ways.
Willing.
One, winning. For example, if you are winning, then the victory actually settle, and then make a deal for those defeated. But on the other hand, when there is when one can't defeat the other, okay, and in that situation, maybe to some extent, TPLF you can put in that context. But when you come to Ola, again here, for example, peace also, even though it is not common, peace could happen when they say that if they cannot win, then you can say it, okay, let's discuss, let's solve this problem, because no one is winning this conflict. And so when you come to Ola, because the military situation is really the Abiy is not winning. At the same time, Ola is not also winning. At the same time, Ola doesn't have, or almost zero, diplomatic pressure. There is pressure. We can't say zero. Maybe if you could term in a scale, if you put it in a scale, like 30, 40.
Let's uncover it.
Yeah.
It's like the president of Oromia gave clue for peace talk, and there was reaction from OLA, and they raised about three major issues, like the talk should be between the federal government and OLA, whereby Oromia is involved. The second is they demand third party, and there are also concerns in terms of naming by itself, and these are some of the issues, critical issues over there. Since then, nothing has happened. There is no clear, act or performance in terms of going to peace. Why is that?
It's, because, first of all, let's see what Orla itself, according to Ethiopian government. When the Ethiopian government listed Orla and TPLF in the terrorist list, they were on equal position. So, for Ethiopian government, both of them are terrorist group and should be eliminated by Ethiopian government. Okay? And finally, there was war between TPLF and the Ethiopian government, Ethiopian federal government, and finally there was a peace process and a peace negotiation, and that's settled. And when it came to Orla, when it was a terrorist, it was not Shimalis or Oromia state who say a terrorist group. Is the federal government.
The parliament, yes.
And so it is the enemy for Ethiopia. It's an enemy to the federal state. And now when the peace process comes, it is the state, the Oromia state, say that there should be peace process. Why? First, even though Abiy was asked, and then look, even United States was talking to some. They are not say terrorist group, but they were under terrorist group. They negotiated and then delisted it. That's what they're saying. And so, but the reality, the truth is, first, remove them, remove both, remove your citizen who revolt against you for whatever reason, and then delete them from terrorist list, and then discuss with them, and then start peace process, and then come into terms, and then embark on development, human right, and building peace and democracy. So the reason is because they actually disrespect them. I see like disrespect in this term, and unwillingness also, and repentance for what they have done, and still, those who is having upper hand, who is running the day-to-day, political affair of Abiy, those who say themselves unionist, and then they don't want a peace in that country. They want all TPLF, Orla, and other ethnic group armed struggles to be eliminated. And then only then they could believe that, they could say that now we are at peace.
Yeah, that's great reflection. Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no peace without having peace in Oromia, because
of course
that's a big elephant in the house.
Of course,
yes,
of course. Whether you like or not, there is this theory of called geographic determinism. It states that he who rules the center rules the periphery. Still, Tigray is a periphery, and Oromia is the center. If you rule the center, then you rule Tigray. If you don't rule the Tigray, it doesn't mean that you don't rule the center. If you don't rule the center, you can't rule
the other problem of their government, particularly the Oromian government, the problem is not with OLA only.
Yeah.
It is with the people, the entire people.
Of course.
The government failed to respond to the question of the people.
Of course,
so
yes.
That's why...
because it was hijacked, as we have said. It was hijacked by unionists, and the unionist doesn't want to see your identity, your language, and even your being people. As a people, for example, sometimes I think, how honored, I am Oromo, and you are Oromo, and the others are Oromo, and if we want our own state, we have a right to have our own state. You can't say you can't have your own state.
That's in the Constitution.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Even if it is not in the Constitution.
Yeah.
We were a state, we were a nation before the Constitution. Constitution didn't create us. We created the Constitution. Every nation has, every nation, everybody, every nation has, some kind of political system, and it was governing itself. We have been governing ourselves for long time. We don't know that. We don't really remember, but for thousands we were governing ourselves. And then finally, now we are a nation. As a nation, we have our own government. We have our own state. And just having our own state, we could be a member of generally Ethiopian government. The bigger Ethiopian government. That means, our aim, like Americans said, our aim is to create perfect unionist. Okay, then we can have union. But if you come to me and say, when you speak in your language, you are racist or you are like tribalist, I can't accept this.
Now we are coming to the point. Given your background, I think your background is related to language and language studies. You have been writing on it. And one of the questions of the youth movement and the Oromo people was to make Afan Oromo the federal language. Now nothing is happening, and it didn't happen. Can you? I mean,
yes. Generally, that leads to how we really, when we say union. For example, again, I come to United States. Really, that is a good example. In United States, when they come together, and
why do you compare United States?
Because federalism, the American federalism is a good example for every federal nation, and it is a good example for us. And when they come together, Virginia was a majority, and Virginia was a big state, and Virginia said the majority rules, and then the other small nation like Delaware say that no, we should have equal power. We are a state. Of course, we are small, but we should have equal power. And then finally, Connecticut come, and then they propose, okay, let's compromise, and then yes, on the population size, you should have House of Representatives, and then you have a power in the House of Representatives. In the House of Representatives, actually, the majority win. It's a majority. If, for example, California now has like 55 representatives, while we, Minnesota, have 10, and a small state like Vermont has only 3. And then let's come to Ethiopia. We haven't even discussed that. Of course, it is there. It is there. Yeah. For example, in the House of Representatives and in the Federation, Oromia has the majority. Okay, in the House of Representatives, Oromia has like 178, and in the House of Federation, I don't know, but it could be like 50. Okay, and the majority. But even though the majority, the problem is, as somebody pointed out, there is what is called ethnic in itself and ethnic for itself. Ethnic, those people who are there in themselves. They don't have any consciousness. They don't have what really the demand of the people. They are there because the party elected them. And sometimes I talk to many elected officials, and they told me that I was elected even before going there.
That's true.
There is no promise. There is no election campaign. There is no, if you elect me, I do this for you, because there is no democracy. Because of that, now the federal government or those who are in power now believe that everybody is equal, every nation is equal there, and so they have equal right and equal responsibility. And the country, once it was decided during the unionist or during the imperial time, Amharic became a national language of that country, and we don't want to change that status quo. That's why. But if you really look at what is happening on the ground, the Oromo people are like 40 to 50%. And so if you make two federal languages, which is practical actually, practical, which is easy to implement, and it is really practical. If you make Afan Oromo a federal language and Amharic a federal language, and again English as a working language, then you can answer. You can first of all you can meet the demand of 40 to 50% of Ethiopian population.
Why the others fear that?
The other fear that is because they think that they are minority. And because they are minority, and their fear is if Afan Oromo become a federal government, then Amharic is going to be a minority language, okay? Because they think that these two languages are competing each other, and because they are competing each other,
that's a fallacy.
That's fallacy. That's fallacy. For example, if you look, Canada has two federal languages, French and
South Africa.
South Africa, 10 languages, and Belgium 2 languages, and Switzerland 4 languages. It's possible. Language is not an issue. If you really address this problem, if you, for example, as a majority, I want to see my culture in the federal government. I should be represented in the federal government, and so one of my identity is my language. And if they respect my language, if they work in my language, and if it become a national language, then I feel that I am a member of that. I am a member of that country, that state, and so it is really very important, and it must be.
Okay, let's get out of this and dive into the other angle of our discussion. As you see, there's a peace talk between the TPLF and the Ethiopian government, and things are moving well. And in fact, we have a serious concern that Oromia is in turmoil. And in any country, after war, after crisis, after turbulences, there is a need for transitional justice. And do you see any hope, readiness from these actors in terms of transitional justice?
No, they are not ready. I believe they are not ready. Let me tell you why. First of all, what happened, for example, when they delist TPLF from terrorist list and then left OLF there, then this tell you that these people are not willing. One. Second, we are talking about transitional justice. When we talk about transitional justice, what is transition? That transition itself. It is transition from conflict to democracy, right?
Yes.
So, in order to have transitional justice, you should be in transition. The conflict should stop. And the conflict is not a stop. If you are talking about transitional justice in Tigray or Amara, you could talk about that. But the transition in Ethiopia, no.
Yes, that's
because there is active conflict yet. The conflict didn't stop.
Let's focus on the northern part, okay, for the time being.
Yes.
Do you think that transitional justice could happen even in that portion of the nation? Because these are the actors themselves. Transitional justice includes accountability.
Yes.
Do you think these people are ready for that?
No. Again, no. The answer is no. Let me tell you why. For example, when Getachew Reda talked to Anthony Blinken last time. He on his Twitter he said that even though we don't believe in so-called transitional justice, we will see. That's what he said. And the reason is, when you talk about transitional justice, successful transitional justice happen after regime change. After regime change, there is always what you call this auditing, political auditing and human rights auditing. And so those who were killed, those who were abused, those who were, face injustice, they all report. And when they all report, then there is a commission. For example, if you look at South Africa, the most successful transitional justice war in South Africa was, after apartheid. The apartheid already gave away, and the new government, the new black under Mandela come up with, Mandela and others come up with Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and the Truth and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission actually commissioned other people, and they were listening to everybody's abuse, everybody's experience actually, and then they faithfully and they reported it. Okay, they reported it, and then after that, the government responded. The government, for example, now in Ethiopia, especially in the northern part of Ethiopia, the United States government last time said that all parties,
yes.
TPLF, Ethiopian National Defense,
Eritrean government,
Eritrean Defense, and all committed war crime, and again, Amhara also, and the three, the Eritrean and the Ethiopian and the Amhara forces committed crime against humanity, and the Amhara force again committed ethnic cleansing, and all these are international crimes. And since they are international crimes, you don't actually, this doesn't stop somewhere. Okay, even there will be a fourth one, and it is coming from the experts on human rights. They are going to include using famine as a weapon, and that also goes to Abiy. So who is responsible? Abiy is going to be responsible. The generals are going to be responsible, and the regional state leaders or state presidents. For example, Amhara state president is going to be responsible for this. And so these crimes are not, even if they are committed by individual soldiers, but there is someone who intentionally helped or gave order to happen. And so those who are responsible by their nature, who are responsible, the political leaders and the military leaders. And do you expect Abiy is going to face or Abiy going to court in Ethiopia because of this crime? No. And no one.
So you don't see any hope and
any hope.
Okay.
That's actually what happened in Sudan, and that's why in Sudan it didn't work.
Great. Let's a bit move to the Oromia context. We are finalizing our discussion.
Yeah.
I feel that the parliament could have removed the OLA from a terrorist list, because that's the starting point. If they are willing to
for the peace.
Yes, for the peace.
Yeah.
That's, I think, a missing point.
Really.
And on the other side, members of the parliament who elected from, in fact, okay, let's say elected. I don't know whether they did get election. I mean, represented by the people, but they are there representing the Oromo people. Like 80 of them wrote a letter to African Union. Requesting to interfere and just play a role like what they did in the northern part of Ethiopia. Seeing this, how do How do you value this movement? The same government, you see, the parliament refused to remove oil from the list, and a group of members of parliament requested the African Union to interfere for peace talk.
Actually, it clearly showed you the powerlessness. It showed you powerlessness. Let me tell you why it is. I appreciate, I really respect those individuals.
Yes.
I respect them. What they have done is really good, and I should say thank you. But it clearly shows you the powerlessness. Why? These people, they are elected, to the parliament, and they represent 100,000 people. Generally, they are 18. Yes, they represent about, at least they were elected by 1 million people. Okay, but they could represent the whole Oromia, maybe like 40 to 50 million people. Well, if they represent this, if they are really a member of parliament, why they didn't write this question in the parliament? The parliament is the most powerful. The parliament is, the superior political entity in that country. Okay, even the prime minister report to the parliament. The prime minister Abiy was elected from the parliament. Okay, when the parliament come together and actually give appointment for ministers, it is assumed that they make one minister a prime minister. We should actually there is no this political understanding there. The people think that the Abiy is a president. They think that he believes that he is a king, a Messiah king. But the reality is that especially in the country where you have this legislative system or parliamentarian system, not presidential system, the prime minister is simply one minister who become a prime. He is a prime. And so, at any time, you can call the prime minister and then ask him, why you don't make a peace with oil? Okay? Okay.
No, this is members of parliament you see, they are members of the party. They were not actually elected, for that matter. They were just represented, and they don't have that kind of power, for that matter. That's why
I said powerlessness. They don't have. Sometimes look at the voices and what who is on the media, who is on on media landscape. For example, if you look at the parliament discussion last time, somewhere somewhere opposing the delisting of TPLF. And then the media was reporting that. The media was showing that these people are getting media landscape. But these people who wrote it later for Africa Union didn't get even a second to speak about oil. Okay?
Yes.
So, now what this really show you?
No single member of parliament raised his hand and talked to the parliament that way. Let's
so this especially I study literature and sometimes in narratives we look at who is speaking in behalf of what. Those who are speaking those who are on the media landscape are the unionists who have the upper hand in the government and who also control the bureaucracy. They are speaking, and a small voice which is really pressured by diplomacy and maybe the peace accord are speaking. They just said, please accept our proposal, let's delist TPLF. Other than that, The others didn't get opportunity. The others didn't get, a venue to speak about what is happening in Oromia and what's happening everywhere in the country for that matter.
Thank you for that critical reflection. Let me take you to the other angle of it, because we are running out of time. It's very interesting discussion, but we have to stop somewhere. Now, let me get your reflection on aggravating factors like inflation, corruption, and if you like, starvation in that country, which is getting tough now. You can take Borna and Harar, some parts of Harar, and the lowlands of Bali, Guji, Borna, and what have you. Very serious starvation, and well, some of it is man-made and so on. So, in a brief, what's your reflection on that?
Yes, there is. Actually, if there is hell on this earth, then it is Ethiopia. Because you are really experiencing every kind of problem, okay? There is conflict, there is violence, there is crime, there is corruption, there is famine, there is hunger, all kind of. No one on this earth, on the face of earth now, really faced extermination. Like 100 million people were exterminated in Tigray. Where this happened? Nowhere. Where is on the face of the earth where 24 million people are in hunger? Nowhere. And where you have skyrocketing inflation? Nowhere. It's really tough. It's really tough. And so the problem is we ourselves. We don't blame anybody. Abiy didn't come from anywhere. And if we know, Abiy is nobody. Dictators are nobodies. Okay? Dictators are only dictators because there are enablers.
But I sometimes oppose this. And why do you name Abiy? Because it's the system. It's the whole system which is doing this.
Yeah, he created the system, or the system created him.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
what's your analysis?
Yes. For that matter, it's the system. Of course, it's a system. Always, if you have a bad system, the bad system bring.
The system could have, you see, directed or control these personalities, figures.
For example,
fact, personalities, I know, can change the direction of history, but cannot change history for that matter.
Yeah. For example, look at our history, because we have. Once I have done a paper on double consciousness. Double consciousness is actually is an idea. It's African American political thought proposed by Du Bois, and so he thinks that we African American in America have two souls. Sometimes we want to be faithful to American. Sometimes we want to be faithful to Africa. Okay, because our root is America. Everybody has a root. Some are from Europe, some from Africa, some from elsewhere. And so again, we have this kind of experience in Ethiopia, especially as Oromo. I have two souls. I have two identities. Sometimes I want to show my Ethiopian identity. Sometimes I want to show my Oromo identity. For me, what is really very important is my Oromo identity, because that is what makes me human. And that's what we get from Gada. And so, because of this, we have two political thoughts. In the northern part of Ethiopia, they have been under the kingship, this king mentality,
right.
So imperial mentality for a long time. Still, they don't know how to change the government. They don't know the people power.
That's how
Yes.
they have been socialized.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But when you come to the south, again, you have in the south you have two systems. In among Oromo, the Oromo are the middle one. Okay, the others maybe they have their own government, their own ruling system, but they are smaller and they are like they maybe you could say they were not nation or develop a higher political system. But if you come to Gada system, Gada is like a democracy. It's a democracy actually. It's a democracy. It has all these democratic elements. It has these three branches of government: the legislative, the legislature, and the judiciary. The judiciary is called Adacha, and the legislative is Chafe, and the executive is Abagada. Okay, so you elect your Abagada, and you elect your Abagada, and you elect your Chafe members, the Chafe members every 8 years. And if your Gada, if that Abagada and the elected members of parliament do well, then they will be in power for 8 years. And after 8 years, you should elect again. And you should elect again. And then it goes like that. So, but if an Abagada, you think that an Abagada is really on the right direction and commit a serious crime, then you can remove him from the office.
Thanks.
You have a power.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, in Oromo it is said, Abagada inajjesa male himbukesu. That means you have a right to remove Abagada from the office, but you cannot kill him for the crime he committed. Okay? So, we should actually, as a solution, I propose this Gada system, especially termism. Term. Every elected official should have a term. It could be 5 years, it could be 10 years.
Yes.
Every prime minister should have a term, okay? 5 years or 10 years. And I propose, especially from the Oromo, for Oromia state, I propose two parliament, two chambers. The now what is called Chafe, in which member of parliaments are from different political party, and again the other chamber who are composed of Abagadas. And so Gada Chafe or Gada parliament and the political parliament. If we do have these two, and if we have this check and balance, then we could have really a good democratic society, and we could actually address our problems, and we could actually really improve our people's life.
Thank you, Dr. Tafari. And there are a lot. I mean, the Gada system, as you know, is the most democratic system of its time.
Yeah.
And we can take some of the values and, use that values by linking with modern days government system. Mm-hmm. And that's a great point, but we need to discuss more on that. And I hope it's by itself is a big chapter that we need to discuss the other time. I hope we'll have some time depending on our program. Now, it's time for you, because we're running out of time, it's time for you to make some final remark, particularly if you like to advise the Ethiopian government or the Oromia government or international community in getting out of the crisis that is happening in Ethiopia now, within a split of second, actually.
Yeah, actually my final remark is the international community should put more pressure on the Ethiopian government to have all-inclusive national dialogue in which OLA, TPLF, and all other parties in conflict involved.
Sure.
And so let there be peace in Ethiopia. Let our people get freedom. Let our people get democracy. And let our people lead their own life. And that's all I say.
That's a great remark.
Yeah.
With this, we conclude our discussion with Dr. Tafari, which is a very excellent discussion. For those of you who have vision, professional critics, ideas, please contact us through my Facebook. My name is Hussein Kadir, and for today we'll end up here. See you next time. Dr. Tufari, profoundly thanks so much for the reflections and ideas. That was a great discussion.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is the future of Africa. In this program, we focus on Horn of Africa's political, economic, and socio-cultural aspects. Let's share our vision, hopes, and professional critics. All views are stemmed. Stay with us.